Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like it need Visine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like it need Visine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off.
Blast off on another VIP episode of Hero Paranormal Podcast, broadcasting south of the Uintah Basin and just south of Area 51. My name is Ryan, the original outlaw of the airwaves, bringing you, well, a humdinger of an episode today. Epic, really. Been wanting to talk to Curry for quite some time, and apparently I talked to him once before. I wasn't aware of that. Goes to show. I do so many podcasts, sometimes I forget which ones I have done. But Curry didn't pop onto the map, so to speak, until apparently after I was on his show already. He's got a great show. Passion for the Paranormal is the name of it. Definitely like and subscribe that show as it goes into the fringe areas that I am so eloquently stuck in. I love it. I just love the kind of stuff that Curry digs into. So when he and I discussed possibly doing a podcast, it was a no-brainer. Curry is well versed in everything northeastern Utah, shapeshifter territory related. He is a EVP aficionado, has done it himself. He's gone on ghost hunts. He's done research himself. He's not just an armchair researcher. He's gone to backwoods areas, some of which only the hardcore researchers know of. He throws a few of them in this podcast. And, you know, I am not well versed in everything northern Utah. He's broadcasting out of Ogden, but amazingly, most of the things he mentioned I have come into contact with. It's hard living in Utah or visiting it monthly and not coming into contact in the same circles. So, with that said, he mentions Kay's Cross, which is a very interesting and haunted location in Kaysville, Utah, I believe. Anyway, Kay's Cross is a private property, and much like some of the paranormal locations we're going to discuss, you have to respect private property. Now, if this is something that you want to look into and do, definitely look up Vincent Lords. He's the guy you want to go with. He has permission to go on the property and does events there. And Kay's Cross investigations, as seen on Ghost Adventures, that's the guy you want to look at, is Vincent Lords. And he can help you do Kay's Cross the right way. Now, Kay's Cross was a large stone cross, roughly 20 feet by 13 feet, located at the base of a hollow in northeastern Kaysville, Utah. All kinds of ghostly activity and reasons. We are going to get into all of that with Curry Stegen. He is much more aware of everything that took place there, including the demolition. On the 15th of February, 1992, the cross was destroyed by an explosion, apparently. Police made no immediate arrests, and in 2013, a haunted tour of Kay's Cross and the surrounding forest was started, stirring interest again in the decades-old legend. So it's real, it's there, and now you know who to contact if you want to do it the right way. There's plenty to see in Utah, guys, and Curry knows all about it. So we are going to get into it. Curry's amazing podcast is one to be listened to. I can't stress that enough. He's a great guy. And with that, let's get to it. Curry Stegen, welcome to the Hero Paranormal Podcast.
If you remember when we did that recording, that was about a year ago. I know...
I don't remember, but I'm sure we did.
Yeah, you were on the show about a year ago. We just did an audio-only recording via Skype.
Oh, cool.
And so... You probably do a lot of interviews and stuff, so you probably don't remember. But, yeah, we talked about Skinwalker Ranch, and in fact, I was going to mention that, and I don't remember. That was about a year ago. And we talked about, some of your investigating in the surrounding Uintah Basin, a little bit about the history of Skinwalker. I know that you don't really want to get into specifics about certain things about Skinwalker Ranch.
Right.
For obvious reasons. There's some sensitive stuff. I get that. I don't know if you want to comment about the new show. I've actually enjoyed the new show. I think it's pretty good. Personally, I don't know what you think of it. I was hoping maybe you might comment or kind of offer your thoughts on the new show and, where it's going.
Yeah, I could, to be honest, I know I can't comment on it, but I'm willing to discuss the ideas and things like that. I personally have viewed the show. I think it's very entertaining and very great. Bought the History Channel just for the show. So, yeah, but I'm, sadly, I'm what people would call, I guess, oh yeah, well, that's expected. We expected him to watch every episode, but I think it's important to me for whatever reason I'm drawn to it. And kind of like I'm sure you are.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've enjoyed it. I like that, the kind of the scientific approach that they're using there, and, they're using instrumentation and, Travis Taylor, I think his name's Travis Taylor, the I want to say an aerospace engineer. He's been pretty interesting. I like his approach. I've enjoyed kind of his approach to things. He's been very kind of objective, and let's see where the evidence takes us. So I don't know. So you really don't even want to comment about the show itself, or kind of give me an idea of what you even want to talk about when it comes to that. I know you can talk about the overarching kind of, hey, here's the history here. We talked about that on the other episode already. Just kind of the, that there's the Sherman, stories that happened when the Shermans were the ranchers there. I mean, I'm assuming we can at least talk about that. That's all public knowledge. Anything that's public already and has already been well covered, I'm assuming that's going to be okay with you? Okay. All right, cool. I want to make sure I don't catch you off guard here as we're talking to me like, or I guess you can always either talk around it or say, yeah, I don't really care to comment on that. I understand the sensitive nature of it. I mean, you've had some dealings with, some high up people, George Knapp and some of those other people there that I haven't had the luxury of having any contact with or anything. So, you've got some insider knowledge that I don't have, and I know you can't talk about that kind of stuff. But maybe just kind of the general and the surrounding area, the Uintah Basin, and kind of the strangeness. I know that you've talked before about Frank Salisbury and his book and his research he's done in UFO sightings. I think that's interesting. We can talk a little bit about that, I guess. And then there was a UFO sighting on the show. They actually had one while they were doing some tests. So I captured a clip of that. But again, we can talk, but we don't have to talk in detail. Just that, it's interesting and, just more about the general UFO activity that's happened around the area in the Uintah Basin. So I don't want to pin you down and make you feel like you got to talk about anything you don't want to talk about. I'll try and be careful about that, because I do get the sensitive nature of some of what's going on there, and some of the contacts you have and people you've dealt with, and whatever investigating you've done actually on the grounds itself. So I think the show's opening up to the conversation, and I like that. Brandon Fugel's at least opened up the conversation about it. Okay, so I'm here with Ryan Burns, and Ryan and I are going to be talking about all things strange in Utah. So, Ryan, glad to have you joining me. Do you want to do a quick intro? Let everybody know kind of a little bit about yourself and how you've gotten involved in paranormal and the things you do.
Yeah, hi, my name is Ryan Burns. I'm, just a guy, really don't consider myself an expert at all. I'm just a guy that is interested in something that really drew my attention and continued to draw my attention no matter how much I tried to put it out of my life. And I noticed that, when I embraced it, it turned more into a kind of a spiritual journey rather than what I expected. But yeah, I think there's a lot of paranormal things taking place in Utah. I think it's highly documented. The recent monolith is a good example. I mean, everything strange always Utah is just a hotbed for strangeness, whether it be high strangeness or strangeness in general, coincidences. The Uintah mountain range just coincidentally happens to run the opposite direction of every other mountain range in North America. And there's other coincidences that take place in the basin. It's a place of magic where just the unexpected is expected.
Yeah, just a quick intro on me. Now, before I do that, Ryan, you also host the Hero Paranormal podcast show. Do you want to just give a plug for that real fast?
Yeah, man, you just did. That's pretty much it. HeroParanormal.com. You can go there and listen to the archives. It's free if you want it to be. If you want to throw a buck, you can. And it's just, podcasting is just... I have found that it is almost like a new revolution. It is a way of getting information that you may otherwise forget or other people may otherwise forget. And if you're able to document it over and over again through different means, methods, interviewers, etc., you really have cast a really broad archive into some of this high strangeness that we're discussing.
Now, you've also written some books, Utah UFO Ranch, about, your investigation of the Uintah Basin, kind of the area surrounding Skinwalker Ranch, and a couple of other books as well. I'm intimately familiar with the Utah UFO Ranch because, you were on the show about a year ago. You and I had talked a little bit about Skinwalker Ranch and some of your experiences, investigating around the surrounding basin, and that was an interesting discussion. I really enjoyed that. So, most of the listeners, you'll know who I am. I'm Curry Stegen. I'm the host of the Passion for the Paranormal podcast. So, Ryan, you and I kind of agreed to do this on fairly short notice, and we wanted to talk about all things strange here in Utah. And I think this is going to be a lot of fun talking about some of the strange and unusual things because, as you said before, there's plenty of it to go around here in Utah, I think. I've experienced it. I've been doing paranormal investigating for over 6 years now. I cover all the high strangeness on my podcast show, just about anything from UFOs, Bigfoot and cryptids, haunted activity, near-death experiences. I like to cover and talk about it all. So, there's a lot for us to talk about here, and we're probably going to go about an hour, I think, here. We'll see how it goes. But, Ryan, we cannot talk about Utah and at least not talk about at some level the strangeness and the mystery surrounding Skinwalker Ranch. Now, we've got the new show out, Brandon Fugel's new show, The Secret of Skinwalker. I really enjoyed the show. I've liked it a lot. Any comments you have about the new show and what you think about it?
I can't comment. Well, no comments about the new show. It is, I think the area is an area of high strangeness in Utah, the Uintah Basin in general. And, it is, I think it's a place that is dear to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons.
Yes, absolutely. Now, you, and I think you even talk about it in your book. Frank Salisbury did I think it's the Utah UFO display book. And he talked a lot about the UFO activity and the UFO buzz around the Uintah Basin. How much did that kind of influence you and your desire, perhaps, to research and investigate in the Uintah Basin?
A ton. It was a series of coincidental events that kind of brought Frank and I together. And he was, in my mind, he was just, will forever be this amazing mind who was questioning the nature of reality. And, this is a dance between ourselves and something mostly unseen. And when it does reveal itself for a display of sorts, it's for a reason, and probably for a reason that's different for each observer. Still unknown, though.
Yeah, and I know, again, you don't really want to comment too much about Skinwalker Ranch, and I understand there's some sensitivity with that. I'm going to talk, I want to drag an image over here and talk about this. This was actually a video capture. Well, this was captured on the show while they were doing some testing. Travis Taylor, he's kind of the technical brains behind a lot of the tests and stuff they're doing on the show, and this was an interesting one. Anyway, the gist of it is they were doing some testing on the show. They were shooting some rockets up with some sensors, and I don't know if we're going to be able to get that actual image to display. And they actually had a sighting while they were doing these tests. And it was interesting because it was almost as if it was reacting while they were doing these tests. But I think it kind of speaks to, the greater UFO activity that's been witnessed around the Uintah Basin. And from your perspective, Ryan, do you think this is really one of the biggest hotspots for UFO activity?
In my opinion, which, like I said, I'm not an expert, and from my, excuse me, I think that it is an area of interest. It's an area of interest, and so much so that it's important to me. And it is more than it appears to be, just because if observation is such a critical element to the phenomena, then it has been, at least in recent years, highly lowered, in my opinion, the observation from a outside perspective. So just speaking of a totally separate issue, I think a particular property that is in the basin that was kind of a lover's lane place to go, and it used to be called the Southern Vantage Point, which looks north towards the Uintah mountain range and varying degrees of different mesas. And it is, I would say that it is it's now called Space Wolf Research, but it's disinformation that it's somehow a place where people go to witness the phenomenon. It is by far more of a place that has had the active observation, and which made it appealing to me, having brought up Frank Salisbury, and the observer is key. Where it is observed the most may be a key element. And however, it went from observation, which made it appealing to me, to something more. It was more than a lover's lane type hangout that saw several cars a weekend. Now it's private ownership, which has maybe allowed 8 people total on it since it's changed hands. And so that's just talking about a small percentage of the basin, but I see this happening across the basin where landowners are realizing that there's more to this than they originally thought. Yeah, it looks like I got the image to display here, and just, kind of a cool image. This is, and I think the background there's been highlighted for effect there, but this happened actually on the one episode where they were doing some testing with rockets, and I don't remember if it happened, I think, just about the time they had finished doing one of the tests. This craft, just appeared. And it's kind of a disc-shaped looking craft.
and maybe for a minute or so it was there, and they were all looking up at the sky and commenting on it. But maybe, Ryan, as far as appearance of craft, have you heard of a lot of stories about dish-shaped type craft appearing in and around the Uintah Basin area?
Yeah, the Uintah Basin has a rich, long history in general of UFOs in the area. And to bring it up, I can't really see the image, so I can't speak to it. And bringing up the TV show, all I can say is I like everybody in it. But the Uintah Basin in general, the Utah UFO display really made it obvious to me that the Uintah Basin, and the more of it that can be carved out for the right reasons, is really a spiritual retreat for some, a nightmare for others, a place where you're able to commune with things that aren't supposed to exist. And depending on your personal journey, this is definitely a place to be avoided if you're looking out for self. But if you're looking into self, it might be a place you want to head out a weekend, camp at a designated camp spot, look at the sky, whatever. Give it a fair shake compared to Sedona, Arches. There's so many areas, southern Utah, which brings up the monolith and ley lines and other things. And, the monolith lined up, in my opinion, quite significantly with Thompson Springs and the general area of interest we're discussing. And not only that, I don't think that monolith was made to be found. In fact, I think more information has been gathered since whatever your opinion of the people that dismantled and took it out, since they took it out, I believe that more information has been gathered about the site. It's pretty significant that, let me see the YouTuber here that I followed so everybody can check it out, because it's actually worth checking out. It is Jailbreak Outlander. And if you go to his site, he did a pretty detailed thing after they had taken it out, which I thought was really interesting because he had friends who had just been there before it was taken out, and it was very level. After 5 years that we know of, may have been more, it was completely level, completely true, significantly placed in directionality, north-south, and also where there was a naturally forming waterfall, it seemed to split the water in two streams around the amphitheater. So quite literally, if there was a rain, you could sit there and talk with the water going around the audience and the echo going out. And this is all very occult, I know, and it seems silly, but it I don't think so. With cults like NXIVM, this has like NXIVM written all over it, in my opinion, or something NXIVM-ish. Built, used, forgotten about, found who knows how many years later. But it was... Maybe not. Maybe it's just an art piece. But still, the significance of the placement, the person who put it in was knowledgeable of semi-quasi-occult things because of how it was put in. It had other interesting aspects as well. But what are your thoughts on it, Curry?
Well, I'm going to try and drag an image over and see if we can get that to work, of the actual monolith. This is kind of, we're on Skype here, and we're trying to do some photo sharing, and I'm still trying to get the bugs worked out on this. I finally got the last image to display. I don't know if it's going to allow me to actually display this or not. I've got an overview image that I'm looking at, and I don't think it's going to, unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to allow me to do it for some reason. Let's see. I find it interesting in the fact that it's a very remote location. It's a slot canyon. There was mention when these, and I don't know if they were BLM workers. They were out there actually counting. I don't know if it was sheep, goat. I'm not sure what the animal was that they were actually counting, and they discovered this object. But one of the things that I find interesting about it is, I mentioned the remote location and how they drug this thing out here. It was obviously well thought out and well placed, and people have actually done some Google Earth searches on it, and it appears that this thing was located there at least since 2015, 2016 timeframe. Some are saying there's rivets located on it, so yeah, it very well could have been just an artist design. There was even an artist's name specifically mentioned who had the vision of doing this. We saw one pop up in Romania, we saw one pop up in Northern California up on a mountaintop, and they've all seemed to disappear now, which is kind of strange, which kind of just plays to the mystery of all this. But it was also removed, and, there's been funny commentary. People have said this looks like the Southwest Gate sign, that sort of thing. But it's interesting about the placement, and that it was there for such a long period of time before it was ever discovered. Dimensions-wise, we're talking about 10 feet tall and I think about 2 feet wide. And again, there was another guy that somehow finally managed to find a location, because I don't think they broadcast the exact location. And he said there was more than one surface. In other words, like it had kind of been put together. It wasn't all one solid surface, and that's one of the things he pointed out. So I think it's probably prosaic explanations for this, although there is some kind of interesting elements to this, and whoever did possibly do this, it was very well thought out, as you kind of already alluded to.
Yeah. The other odd thing, just not that it's that important, is that the acoustics, apparently if you were within a foot of this thing, your voice would echo or amplify throughout the amphitheater. And if you were more than a foot or a couple feet away from this, there was, your voice would reduce down to normal sound. So the placement again, but yeah, man, I think to myself, and I first thought obviously Westworld, because they filmed in the general area. Is this some occult way of like bringing Westworld's overall popularity into fruition? I doubt it. I don't think Westworld's going to go to the lengths of securing those permits and not do things by the book. The other thing is, is it a possible eccentric occult group? Possibly. A lot of these are starting to kind of bubble to the surface with the Epstein saga. We have members in general southeastern Utah, Arizona, and parts of Mexico that were members of multiple families, NXIVM, and other organizations. And I'm not saying that it was them, but if they are there, it's usually, where you see one dog, there's a pack. And it makes me wonder, we'll never know maybe, but the reasons, it definitely man-made in my opinion, but the reasons that it was there, unknown, kind of cool. And now, the fact that so many are popping up jokingly at this point almost makes me want to look at the first site more, because if you didn't, it almost seems like a distractionary joke. Some kooky quack put it out there. Let's forget about it. The Diesel brothers found it, and the rest is history. But I think there's more to it.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it kind of harkens back to 2001 Space Odyssey. A lot of people mentioned that. It certainly looks like that monolith structure they had in there. Maybe that's what's kind of captivated so many people and, drawn so many people's interest, is it really looks a lot like that monolithic structure they had on 2001 Space Odyssey. But, yeah, I think there's prosaic explanations here, but, again, very well thought out and planned. the way it's happened, and maybe the other two sites were just copycats, as some people have said. And I really wish we could get the image to display on here, but I don't seem to be having any luck doing that. I popped up another image, and for some reason that displayed, and this one is not, but, this is kind of a new thing for me. I've never really displayed images on here, so unfortunately I was not able to get it to display. I wanted to get back to kind of the discussion on the UFOs, UFO sightings in Utah. We've had several just over recent years.
Oh, yeah.
And one of them, and again, I hope I can get this image to work and display here, and I may not be able to. We'll give it a try. Oh, there we go. Okay, I think I figured it out here, Ryan. This was and I'm not sure what kind of aircraft this was. I don't know if it was a regular airliner or more of a private plane that captured this. But the pilot actually took a picture, as I understand it, with his cell phone of this cigar-shaped object that was flying below them. And, there's been other people made comments that there's probably a prosaic explanation here for this. Maybe it's another aircraft. I don't see any surfaces. I don't see any flight surfaces, wings, horizontal or vertical stabilizer. I don't see any of that. And I think it was mentioned that there was no signs of propulsion. The other thing interesting about this sighting is it kind of looks similar to the Tic Tac UFO. I almost said tic-tac-toe, but the Tic Tac Navy video, it's very similar in appearance, and interesting. They captured this thing. This is a MUFON case. This was the pilot was actually flying over Zion National Park, and this thing kind of seemed to be following them. And I don't know, have you seen the video from this before, Ryan? Have you saw this one before?
This is new to me. This is actually really cool. Yeah, no, this is new to me. But yeah, it looks like, and often with these authoritative sightings, and when you have video, if it was somebody else, it would just be, this guy's a hoaxer. But when it's a pilot, an officer of military types or law enforcement, it's taken more seriously, but it seems like more often than not, a lot of these just look like pure energy, which is very reminiscent of biblical and Middle Eastern and all kinds of, Indian Vimanas and, you name it, when you're just talking pure energy. And if this is a reversed engineered craft or some black project where anti-gravity is being used, I'm not saying that doesn't exist, it's likely that it would look very similar.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's funny you mentioned energy because there's another UFO sighting, and this just happened back in July here in Utah. A guy in Draper captured this, and let me see if I can get the image over to display it. And hopefully those who are going to be watching this on the YouTube, as a YouTube video, will be able to see these display. And it was basically an orb-type object that appeared in the sky and was kind of dancing around. And let me see if I can actually find the image of this. And it was interesting because it was out west. I think the guy who took the video of this, it was out west, kind of facing out towards the west mountain range. And again, it had this orb-like appearance to it. I don't know that I have the image here. Okay, well, anyways, that happened back in July. I'm wondering, have you seen video or photographic evidence of these types of sightings, in and around Utah?
Yeah, as early as last night, I have video sent to me from a very close friend of mine, one of my best friends. He's actually does head of security for stuff, but he has some friends that, anyway, yes, I'll send you the videos just from the Uintah Basin. 3 of them It's just last night. This is different. This is different people. He didn't gather them, but yeah, constantly this is happening. Yeah, it could be. A lot of times this one of them is a line. Reminiscent of Starlink, and but others are not. So it's hard to tell, but they're very common.
Yeah, and I've seen other video footage of them as well, and it just begs the question: what are you seeing there? It kind of harkens back to what you already said, and that is, they kind of just look like free floating kind of energy, balls of energy, and it's not your typical disc-like object, but it's very interesting. I wanted to see if we could display, going back to the monolith, I'm going to see if I can get this to come up. There's the monolith. Hopefully you can see that. If you looked at this, just from the picture, it looks, just kind of like a, maybe stainless steel object, all one piece. And I just wanted to throw this up there because I know we were trying to throw it up before. But other observers seem to say that there was rivets present and, kind of like it was put together with more than one surface. So I just wanted to throw that up there because I was having a little technical difficulty doing that before. Unfortunately, I can't get the Draper image to display. And we'll see. I have another interesting, it's actually from a YouTube video of perhaps a cryptid sighting. I don't know if you've seen this one or not, Ryan, or if you even want to comment. I think it was captured somewhere in the Uintah Basin near Skinwalker. I'll see if I can get this thing to come up or not. There it is. Whoa. Let me back out here. That zoomed in a little bit too much. There you go. Ryan, have you seen this one?
Mm-hmm.
Or can you see that on the screen?
Yeah, I've seen it. Yep.
Okay. I thought this was kind of interesting. Some people could say this is just some sort of dog. When I looked at it, I can't find it. I certainly don't see any explanation for what kind of animal this could be. Unless it's just, it's not a coyote. It doesn't look like a wolf. Could it be some sort of cat? I suppose. I don't know. What's your thoughts on this one?
I'm very familiar with this video. I think it's one of the most encouraging videos from, people have commented that it was, why is it so shaky? How did he have, I think it's epic video. I know the person that caught it. His name is Cody to be, and he was working in a professional capacity at the time as a wildlife for the tribe officer. I'm not sure. I could be wrong on the professional capacity, but he was working professionally and looking for things of this nature. And these things are so fast, which you can tell in the video. It's either moving or it's not moving. And it, in my opinion, I don't know Cody's personal opinion, but I would love to know it. In my personal opinion, what we have here is a feral, natural animal which has taken the place of something that used to be there. And what I mean by that is this is a phenomenal creature. I would guess that this is some kind of mastiff mix, which has probably lived in the wild. And by wild, I mean the mesas and the ridge lines that are purportedly haunted in the basin. And they're purportedly haunted for a reason because of animals like this. So it is kind of a self-perpetuating truth. If you have a harsh environment where only the toughest things can survive, you're going to end up with just the toughest things, whether they're paranormal in nature or not. This is, I believe, rational, depicted, feral, wild, what they call res dog in the area, which is not something you want to mess with. And oftentimes you'll come across a pack of these things, not necessarily this large, but there's packs of these. And trust me when I say you'd probably have a better chance with a pack of wolves, because these things are brutal. And these res dogs are, for all intents and purposes, just predators. An alpha predator, which has taken the spot of an alpha predator. And in my opinion, the alpha predator that it's taken the spot of is quite possibly the paranormal aspect we're discussing, but because of heightened interest in it, it tends to back down a little bit into the recesses of the actual environment, if you believe in that sort of thing, and a natural component fills the gap. In addition, wolves used to go through this area. Gray wolves, and if you go further back, a lot of other creatures that are even scarier. And this area is still more or less, if you take an 80-mile radius of the basin and incorporate that into the wolf population and their routes, it is through there. They go up through the Uintahs into Yellowstone and such, and they come back down through parts of Utah into northeastern Utah into Colorado. So with a recent proposition that was passed, they are going to actually put gray wolves into the wild in Colorado, and we will very likely see more of the natural component come through this area, migrate through this area first a little bit, maybe then a little more. And I don't know how it's going to, we'll have to see how the dance between the res dogs and the actual packs of actual predators is going to work out. I know the ranchers aren't happy, but I think it's important to try to protect some of these animals. Even the res dogs, I believe, have kind of a place. I mean, they've really carved out a niche for themselves, which is, wild.
Interesting. Now, have you actually experienced these things when you've been investigating out in areas in the Uintah Basin?
Yeah, and that's why I say the res dogs are unpredictable. I've experienced them with other people and myself. And that's why the paranormal component is almost more approachable than this, because this is so unpredictable. These dogs are going to do one of two things when they see you, and you know that. And when they're in a pack, you know that. So whatever the alpha does, the rest are just going to blindly do. And it's spooky because I haven't had them charged yet, but I've heard stories. So it's very likely and impossible that they do this because they take down huge animals. That's what they do.
Now, Ryan, I want to talk a little bit. You've spent a lot of time in Utah. You used to actually reside here. You now make, I think, Las Vegas your home. Now, do you come back to Utah a lot? Are you still investigating around the Uintah Basin? Are you coming back here frequently?
I thought I lost. Yeah, I heard you. I think, it is more of a, yes, I come back often, monthly. And it's just an area that's special to me, but it is fascinating, just fascinating. I feel drawn to the area, but it's not for the, reasons that a lot would expect. There's a lot of peace that comes from the area. There's other things that come with it, a ruggedness in the landscape. It's a different kind of beauty, it's hard to explain, but yeah, it's a place I go back to often, and it holds a special place in my heart.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you could just comment quickly. You cover this in your book. So in Utah UFO Ranch, these lights are drones that you've experienced out there. And they seem to be, intelligent. They seem to follow people. I think you've experienced it. Can you offer a comment on kind of what you've experienced with those drones or strange orb-type lights of energy?
Yeah, I would say that they are very similar to what you're describing. They are just orbs of energy that are roaming the landscape, so to speak, at odd heights. Heights that are slightly taller than human and they seem under intelligent control. So it's fascinating. I'm always drawn to them, but they are sometimes drawn to you. So there's instances where they actually follow people, chase people, and itself could become more than a display at that point.
Yeah, thanks for commenting on that. Yeah, I thought that was interesting aspect of your experiences out there, were these strange balls of energy or lights. And there was also a story about when the Sherman Ranchers were on the property, which is now Skinwalker Ranch, that they witnessed these as well. And there was a story about, I want to say it was their two dogs actually were chasing a couple of these objects. And I don't think they ever came back. Are you aware of that particular story?
Yeah, it is a actual event. I know that getting to the story, it's interesting that canines in particular seem to be the best biosensors, or sensors in general, to this high strangeness that sometimes manifests as a canine. But the history and the evidence, not only in the general Uintah Basin and the United States, but in other countries, this goes back millennia, where dogs have been attributed as being the first on a property to be aware of a quote-unquote jinn if you're in the Middle East, or possibly the Fae if you're in Europe. And I think that the energy is most likely similar, if not possibly the same.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's kind of a good segue into another thing people experience here in Utah. Many people have experienced, and that is Bigfoot sightings. We've had a lot of them here in Utah.
Yeah.
You know, Ryan, we were talking just a little bit before we started recording here, a little bit about the Bigfoot sightings. I've got one I want to talk about in particular, for starters, and this is one that happened just in October. And hopefully you can see that on the screen there. I've got it encircled in red there, but this was a deer hunter and his son up here in Logan Canyon spotted this creature, and this is RMSO is the one that is investigating this, the Rocky Mountain Sasquatch organization, and they were about 300 yards away filming this Bigfoot, what appears to be a Bigfoot, with their cell phone. I think, they zoomed in on it a little bit. The comments from Rocky Mountain Sasquatch organization is, one, this is deer hunting season. So why is a Sasquatch, why would a person, dressed in dark clothing be wandering around out there during deer hunting season without any orange on? First of all, would not be smart to do that at all. Second of all, they commented that, very, very broad shoulders, like other Sasquatch sightings, very, very long arms, and natural movement that has been attributed to other Bigfoot or Sasquatch sightings. So they actually watched this thing for about 10 minutes, wandering along that trail, and then they simply left. They departed. The thing I find strange, Ryan, is I've noticed in a lot of these Bigfoot sightings, and I've got a few more here if we do happen to have time to get further into these other cases, is people will go back to where they saw where they've sighted these creatures, and if you will, and you go back and there's no footprints or any signs that they were there. I'm wondering what your thoughts are, if you have any comments about that.
It's hard to say. It looks like a really good video, different from the majority. And I've dealt with this group before, and they seem to be an up and up group on, honestly report everything that they see. That being said, it's unknown. I think the Sasquatch phenomenon is And I sound like the crazy man in the room, but in a way I think I'm the rational voice in the room, because the Sasquatch is another thing that really should be there in our environment. These massive cities like you see behind me really shouldn't. But, a creature like the Sasquatch, there's the historic evidence of this, or similar creatures like Gigantopithecus actually filling this niche that apparently is either being filled on a dimensional basis according to some, or on a real level, real time basis according to others, and maybe both.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I had Ron Moorhead on the show a while back. His latest book is Quantum Bigfoot. And of course, he, along with a few other of his hunters slash maybe even researchers, were responsible for capturing back in the 70s the famous samurai. I think they refer to them as the samurai recordings, where there was, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but Ron really believes that there may be a interdimensional or some sort of supernatural explanation for these sightings. And again, if you hearken back to the Native Americans, and some of the Native Americans actually believed there was a supernatural component to these Bigfoot sightings. So it does beg the question, why are people seeing these things? And there have even been cases where they disappear right before their eyes, and there's oftentimes no tracks found. Other times they do find what appear to be perhaps tracks. Maybe there's a couple of different explanations for what may be going on here. Maybe there is a flesh and blood creature. Maybe there's also some that have an interdimensional aspect to them. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, and Ron Moorhead certainly thinks that there may be an interdimensional aspect to this. I wanted to throw one more up here. I know this is kind of blurry, this image, but this is a video. Somebody captured this from their backyard using a very, very high-powered scope, and actually recorded video of it as well. As you can see, pretty rough weather conditions, and this is up on, I want to say, Wasatch Peak. And there's been, reportedly, based on what RMSO has said, there's been other sightings in this location. But it looks fairly large. If you watch the video, it's kind of just walking slowly up this hill. And, it's almost like blizzard conditions. So why a person would be up there, walking around up on that peak in those kind of conditions, it begs the question, why would somebody be doing that? I just throw this up here. This was in March of 2019, another case. There's been a lot of fairly recent cases of Bigfoot sightings. Even here, I'm in Ogden, Utah, and we had a RMSO also investigated this case that somebody spotted what they believed was a Bigfoot right above the Oaks restaurant in Ogden Canyon there, walking along the trail. Now, I don't think there was any video or any photo evidence of that, but we've had a lot of Bigfoot sightings just over recent years, and that's just a couple of them there.
You're in a proverbial hotspot up there in Ogden. There's a number of Sasquatch / Bigfoot, wild man, Wendigo, whatever you want to call it, sightings, mostly attributed to Bigfoot. However, in that area, up by where the Trappist monks were in Eden, then there was I believe there was a fish farm incident just east of Ogden in Ogden Canyon, where a Bigfoot was spotted. And if I'm not mistaken, Curry, there was even some strange lagoon sightings in the 70s.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah, there's certainly been many, many cases reported. I wanted to kind of switch gears a little bit here. Mm-hmm. We are talking about all things strange in Utah, and I think I'd be remiss if we didn't at least talk about some of the reported haunted activity. I've been investigating it for a number of years. And one particular place that I find interesting is historic 25th Street in Ogden. And I'll see if I can get display an image here. But a lot of locations there. There have been reported haunted activity going on. 4 different locations that I've actually investigated in along historic 25th Street. And one of them is Union Station. I don't know if you're familiar with some of the reported activity on 25th Street. Union Station is an interesting one. And in just a minute, I'll see if I can actually display an image of 25th Street. But there's been a couple of them that I've investigated. Actually, I've investigated 4 different locations there. And there's so much history behind 25th Street. It was Union Station was a rail hub. It was a major rail hub going from east to west and west and east across the continental U.S. A lot of people stopped over there. In the early 1900s, there was a lot of underground gambling going on. During Prohibition, there was bootlegging going on. And just a lot of, there were also prostitution rings going on along Electric Avenue. Just a lot of interesting stuff going on, and a lot of interesting locations along 25th Street that I've investigated. Any stories that you've heard or any experience with that, Ryan, with 25th Street?
Not too much. I'm not an expert on that at all. I did stay at a hotel there. I want to say it was it was quite haunted, actually. It was on the east side of the street. I want to say it was on...
Was it the Ben Lomond?
Yep.
Ben Lomond Hotel? Okay, yeah. So Ben Lomond is an interesting location as well. There's a lot of, reported, haunted, even people that have saw apparitions there. I've actually had the opportunity at one time, a couple of years back, to do a little bit of investigating there. And at this point, it's absolutely off limits to anybody wanting to go investigate. And as I understand it, they're turning a lot of the rooms into private residences. So it's even going to be more off limits. But we did capture some interesting EVPs, and I'll relay one interesting story. One of my experiences, it was just me and one other investigator. We were, of course, you probably heard the stories about the tunnel system under 25th Street. There were reportedly tunnels running all the way from Union Station all the way up to Ben Lomond. I can't confirm that. What I can confirm is there were at least some tunnels underneath 25th Street in certain points. And one was another location that I investigated. I'll get back to the story in just a minute. I know I jumped off the story I was just talking about. A place called Making Sense Emporium, and I believe it's a guy, Larry, that I know, and I've actually investigated at that location. In the basement there's a couple of sealed doors. They actually sealed off the doors to what was the tunnel system under there. And Larry's place has had a lot of interesting activity. He reported a lot, especially when he moved into the place. He was renovating. He experienced a lot of activity. I've been there and investigated on a couple of the different occasions and have experienced unusual stuff. We've captured EVPs, phantom noises, footsteps going on upstairs when we've been downstairs and nobody's up there. Interesting place. Getting back to the Ben Lomond story, me and another investigator were walking along what I think was part of that tunnel network, which partially goes under 25th Street, and I can only describe what I felt like was a wall of energy I ran into. Interestingly enough, I had a voice recorder I was holding, and as I went back a couple of weeks later and was reviewing the audio from that incident, and it was right when I had told the other investigator I had just experienced some weird energy, I captured this male guttural voice that sounded like it was right next to the recorder, when I had that experience. So it kind of confirms or, helps to verify that I actually did experience something there. Now, the other investigator didn't feel the energy I did, but, the EVP I captured there, in concert with the experience I had there was pretty significant. I'll relay another story, and this is actually a Union Station story. We were actually doing an event there. Me and the paranormal group that I was working with were working the I don't remember the actual name. It was over Halloween time frame. We were actually helping run tours at Union Station, and this is back when they still allowed people to go down into the vaults. We were able to take people down into the vaults, down in the basement of Union Station. We had another person that was actually volunteered to work with our group. She wasn't part of the group, but upstairs she was taking some photos, and it's kind of like almost like a ballroom. There's a big chandelier, and it was one of the places one of the stops when we were doing tours with people. She was taking photos up there, and actually one of the photos she captured was quite interesting. And when she came back downstairs after doing the tour, she shared the photo with me on her phone, and it was quite interesting because it looked like an actual a female wearing kind of period clothing like a dress. There was no head, just kind of an image of a neck and a torso, waist, maybe a little bit of legs, and that was it. The interesting thing is, she showed me the picture, and then she showed a picture she took after it, and there was absolutely nothing there. Like, just a few seconds after she took another photo, nothing was there. So I've investigated that location a couple of times as well. We've captured some interesting EVPs. There's a lot of stories behind Union Station, a lot of groups that have investigated there, and some interesting activity that's happened there. So, like I said, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention historic 25th Street and some of the things that have happened there. Another location that I wanted to talk about, you may be familiar with this as well, Ryan, and that is of the Mountain Meadows Massacre. Now, that is near St. George, Utah, southern Utah. Are you familiar with that location?
I am familiar with the area and the story. It's an interesting location. I haven't seen anything there myself, but I'm open to the idea. Yeah,
and I'm going to pull up an image here. Hopefully we can get that to display. There we go. And that keeps disappearing. Yeah, so this is near southern Utah. I have not visited this location myself. And there was 140 people killed, and I'm not real knowledgeable about the history of what happened. This happened in, I believe, 1857, between some Mormon settlers and some other passerbys, pioneers that were traveling through the area. I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 140 people were killed in this massacre. It's interesting because there's been a lot of reported haunted activity at this location. Some of it has been people seeing strange apparitions. Other people reported hearing the cries of children, women and children, screams and cries. So kind of these disembodied voices. There at the location, many paranormal groups have, of course, visited this location. Interesting and sad history behind this, but there does seem to be a paranormal component behind this story as well. Ryan, what have you heard about this location?
It's interesting that you say, it's interesting that there might be a paranormal component because I've heard various theories of the history, and the bottom line is it's just a horrible tragedy no matter what happened. And it does bring about other reminiscent stories that are attributed to quote-unquote skinwalkers or shapeshifters, at least in the same general time period. because you would get these reports of massive amounts or groups just decimated and massacred, for lack of a better word, without any rhyme or reason, sometimes in the middle of the night. And I don't know, like, this is just an eerie sight. I don't know if it was a miscommunication, if it was a couple of groups that just ran into each other in the middle of the night and overreacted. It's so hard to tell, but there's all kinds of theories about it, and it's really something that if you haven't looked into, it's worth looking into.
Yeah, it certainly is an interesting, there's interesting stories behind the location. How much of it is legend in terms of, the paranormal experiences or, it's hard to tell. I certainly would be interested in at some point visiting the location. I haven't had the opportunity to yet. Another interesting location I want to talk about real quickly, and one of the reasons why this is interesting is there's also a lot of legend behind it, and I'll throw up a picture here. Does that look familiar to you, Ryan?
Let's see. Looks like a cross.
Yeah, just in terms of the location, this is also a very, very, very popular location in Utah, up here in northern Utah, and it's actually called Case Cross. And the reason why I bring up this location is because one, there's an interesting story behind this location. Now, this is a known polygamous family that owned the property here. And the reason for the cross being erected, there's some story behind that as well. Now, there was a cult, some people call it cult practitioner, Krishna Venta was his name. And, the name of the family who owned this land right now is escaping me, but the guy who actually owned this land had a connection to Krishna Venta. And some of his teachings. And he actually erected this cross, supposedly in honor of Krishna Venta, who was killed, by the way, by some of his own followers back in 1958. And, again, this location has a cult following, if you will. There's been a lot of teenagers that have went to this site, a lot of stories of haunted activity, even some supposed dark kind of activity going on there. There's other, I think, more urban legends associated with this site. This is, of course, in Kaysville, Utah. Ghost Adventures went here and actually did an episode at this location. Now, the interesting thing about this location as well is the cross was eventually destroyed. In 1992, nobody seems to know exactly why. There's some speculation, if you will, about why it was destroyed. Some believe possibly it was the property owner, the guy who owns the property. I don't even know if he's still there or even alive today. May have destroyed the cross to discourage vandals or teenagers from going and doing whatever they would do at this site. There was stories of satanic rituals going on. I've got a friend, Jennifer Jones, who does the deadhistory.com website. She delves into these stories a lot, and she also helps kind of put some truth to a lot of these urban legends, if you will, and she does a lot of them. She covers a lot of these in and around, Ogden and northern Utah as well, and this is one of them. Whether or not there was any truth to some of the paranormal activity that was going on at this location, it certainly got a lot of attention, especially after ghost hunters had visited there. In fact, they did an episode, I think just 2 or 3 years ago there. And one of the comments that Aaron made during the episode is, "What's going on with Utah? What the heck is going on with Utah?" He tells Zach, there's just strange stuff going on in Utah. So kind of funny. It's an interesting location just based on kind of the history there and some of the purported activity that's happened there. I've never visited it myself. It's private property. You can't go there. They actually do a haunted event now over Halloween there, I think. So I don't know if you've heard anything about this location, Ryan, but, kind of some interesting history and stories behind it.
Yeah, I heard a little bit about it. I did. I have not been to the location, but I did hear a little bit about it and some of the events and things of that nature from, I think, some of the people that were doing them. But it does look interesting. It definitely is I mean, it's a shame that the cross is no longer there, but I'm just a sucker for that.
Yeah, and again, the story behind it is it's still kind of a mystery. Nobody knows exactly who destroyed it. But again, there's speculation that it was the owners of the property who eventually destroyed it because they got tired of teenagers coming in at night. Now, whether or not that's discouraged teenagers from visiting the site or not, I don't know. That's one of the speculations. I wanted to talk about one other location that I found to be interesting. And you, Ryan, you may have heard of this location, and that is Mercer, Utah. Yeah, it is a location that's a little bit southeast of Tooele. And the reason why I want to talk about this location, I've actually been there on several occasions. Mercer, Utah was an old, late 1800s, it was a famous mining town. At one point it had, I think, anywhere from about 4,000 to 5,000 people that lived in the town in the late 1800s. And, there was a lot of silver mining and gold mining, I think, going on at the time. Eventually, the town was just vacated, more or less. I mean, it just eventually became a ghost town. And, the town stood for many, many years, going all the way, I think, up until the 80s or early 90s. I don't know the exact time frame. And then a mining company came in and actually leveled the town. And I think it was the Barrick Gold Mining Company. Mm-hmm. What's left, the only thing left of this mining town is an old cemetery that stands up on a hill just down from the old mining town, and that's the old Mercer Cemetery. The interesting thing is, as an investigator, I don't typically go out to investigate any sorts of cemeteries, anything like this, but this particular location has kind of it just kind of drew me in. I had heard about it. I'd heard about people that had visited the location and about some strange going-ons there. I'll see if I can get a picture to display here. There we go. It's really interesting because, one, it's a very, very old cemetery. I think the last year that anybody was laid to rest at this location was 1915. A lot of the miners who were living in the town of Mercer were laid to rest here. As you can see, there's wooden slats. Hopefully, viewers will be able to see this image here. There's wooden slats marking a lot of the grave sites. Some of the grave sites are simply rock piles. That's all that there is. There's a couple of things that drew me in about this location. One, it's in a beautiful site. It's up on a hill. You're overlooking the entire valley. You can see the south side of Tooele Army Depot. You can see the Western Mountain Range out beyond it. You can catch some beautiful sunsets, but there's also been some interesting things I've experienced there. A couple of interesting EVPs I've captured there. We've had motion lights go off on command there, which I've hardly ever had happen at other locations. We captured a shadow towards the back of where you saw those wooden slats walking across, and we tried to debunk that video footage. It was one of our investigators had an IR trap camera set up and captured a shadow walking behind there. And about an hour before that, one of our investigators, and it was dark, you could see with the night vision camera, you could clearly see their clothing and see that it was a person. Almost an hour later, we captured that shadow walking back there, and to this day, we have not been able to debunk that. So it's quite interesting. Many cool experiences I've had here, and a lot of other people have claimed to have had. And again, I don't go out and visit other cemeteries to try and investigate. This is the one exception to the rule. But, Ryan, you talked about this kind of spiritual feeling you get, or this kind of certain energy you feel. The strange thing about Mercer is there's kind of this peaceful calm when I go up there and visit, too. So I guess that's maybe the other reason I like to visit the location. It's been a while, maybe a year or so since I've visited there, but I've always enjoyed visiting there and had some interesting things happen. So that'd be a cool place to mention. We're kind of getting short on time here, Ryan. We've been running a little over an hour. Anything else cool about Utah you want to mention for listeners?
Yeah, I think the Mercer area it's a treasure from a paranormal perspective, and large shadow creatures are quite common sightings. There's a multitude of people that have seen that. I haven't been there for quite a number of years either, but it is one of those places that whether anything happens or not, it's worth the trip. And if you're into that sort of thing. Utah has so many of these that it's really a shame to just say, oh, it's here, and here, because they're really just all over the state. Utah really is kind of a magnificent place for the paranormal. Yeah,
absolutely, and plenty of beauty to go around in Utah, scenic beauty as well. I love living here. If you're an outdoor enthusiast, there's so much of that as well, and so much strangeness, as you said as well, that we've already talked about a lot of that. But Ryan, hey, it's been a pleasure talking with you about this stuff. I love talking about. I could go on for hours talking about some of the strange stuff going on in Utah. For those who are not in Utah, maybe that'll encourage you to come out and visit and check out some of these cool locations. Or people that are in Utah in some of these areas. Obviously, Skinwalker Ranch is off limits. It's very heavily guarded. You're not going to be able to go there and visit. Brandon, Ryan, you mentioned that there are places you can go around the area, maybe to camp, and kind of to just check out and explore the Uintah Basin and areas close to Skinwalker Ranch. So, there are still some places that you can go, and there's also some cool scenery. Utah's got its fair share of cool scenery and fair share of strange stuff. So, hey, it's been a lot of fun talking about this, Ryan. I thank you so much for joining me and talking with me today, and have a wonderful rest of your day, unless you have any parting comments.
No parting comments. Just that, it is private property, and surrounding ranch owners also don't like that. So, if you are going up to the area, I would recommend one of the designated camp spots. There's some down by Ouray, which is amazing. Pelican Lake, Bottle Hollow, I believe, is closed for the season, but there's plenty of high strangeness to go around, and Utah is, if you live in Utah, just get it. You don't have to go very far. You probably just have to go into your backyard. So it's pretty cool in Utah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks again, Ryan. Have a great rest of your day, and it's been interesting.
Yep. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
A lot of fun.
Take care. Well, there you have it, guys. Curry Stegen, a guy that really needs no introduction. Loving the way he does his interviews. Passion for the paranormal. Check it out. And until next time, keep your eyes to the skies, feet on the ground, but don't forget to take a look around.
Blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like it need Visine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like it need Visine. Blast off, blast off.